Was born and raised. My first name was Elmer.
Hmm.
My middle name was Paul. The last name was Spahr. And when I went in service,
Mm-hmm.
you had to go by your first name, and I never did. And the first time that they shipped me out into one of the places, and that's going back a good ways, but I went in, and they give me my first name. And I went down there, the old first sergeant, I'll never forget him. I walked down through there, and he yelled Elmer, and I kept right on going. And the second time he yelled, I stopped. I said, "Do you mean me?" He said, "Yeah. Yeah, it's back here." I went back. He said, "I want you to remember one thing. From now on, your name's Elmer." I said, "I don't understand that." He said, "We go by that first name. Your name's Elmer. Don't you ever use Paul again." I never did. I've been Elmer ever since then. But I used my full name then in there. But that's how I got started on using my first name.
All right.
And anyway, what did you want to know about Newville? I'll tell you what I know.
So I want to know what you know,
Well,
or as much as possible.
the main streets down through Newville,
Yep.
they were narrower than what they are today.
Mm.
Not there, but down where that bridge was. That bridge was only one lane years and years ago. But the troughs that went up through there were wood.
Mm.
And the water comes up where the water comes down from the dam up there. There's where it comes out of it comes out of the rocks up there.
Mm-hmm.
But they have come down. The wooden pipes come down the spring into where the house is there, where the water wheel is, and that wasn't there at that time. That was a water wheel laid underneath and turned down there, and the pipe went up, and everything was up on town that pumped the water out. I mean, that's how they got the water, and that pumped up wooden troughs the whole way up through the main streets. No side streets, and went up through all over town. And they were there when I was a kid. And I was trying to remember when it was exactly, but I think it was in, see, I'm 21, 24, 30. I think it was right around 1930 that they changed that. Because those wooden pipes were leaking. And when they took them wooden pipes out, they dug the streets up and they took them out. The pipes were wood. They sent them to, where did I tell you, down to Mechanicsburg, where they had a state place, and that's where they stored them because they were a lot of the wood, but they leaked, and that's when they put the steel pipes up through there. It was in the early 20s or early 30s. I mean, because I was born in 21. But that's when they changed. That's when they changed that. Then they put the pipes on, but they didn't put water in all around over town until I think it was right after they took them out, they put them in. I think it was 27 or 28. Then they put the water in, but people didn't have the way to get it in off the streets. It went through the main streets, and we didn't get water in town until 40. I think we got water in our home was 46 or 47 before we lived right on Main Street, second house up, coming up in the spring down there. But the spring down there, that was down that went down to all the dams that was along there. There was all mills down along that, where that water goes down there now, under the bridge and goes down. See, there was dams down there along there. People had farms down there, and that's, but then they took water, put it all out Newville, out to Dublin Road and that, and all around. But it took years to do that, and we had. Let's see, I started the school in 19. Let's see, I was 5 years old. At that time, you could start if you were 6 years old. Yeah, if you were 6 years, you had to be 6 years old to start, and I was 5 in the 4th of January was my birthday. So they let me start because I come under the next period just by a day or two. So I started when I was really 5 years old to go to school in Newville. And I went to Newville High School. And this, when did I went there, I went there all my life because I lived at 89 East Main Street. And there was a lot of traffic, but there was a lot of horses and buggies ran. A lot of people went to Carlisle in horse and buggies at that time that went down the whole way because the road wasn't all good macadam. And when the sun came out in the wintertime and the heat made the old time aluminum raise, and you had to go over them bumps about 1 or 2 miles an hour between that and Carlisle because you've seen tracks that are raised up, but that's the way they did. Then finally they tore that all up and they put down the different, but that took a lot of years to do that. And Dublin Hotel, out in Dublin there where the camp is, where church is, that was a hotel. And the people come from all around Philadelphia and all the way. They come by train into Newville, and then there was a fellow there by he had an old blue Chevrolet, a 1921 or 22 Chevrolet, and when they got off the train at Newville, he hauled them out there over that old rough road out to Dublin, and that's where they stayed for a week or so at a time. That's where the hotel was. And there's at one time there was 400 and some acres at that point in time. Went clean up over the mountain, and that's where the water was. I don't know if you've ever talked about, but when you go up the Dublin Mountain, you go up there, and you know where Flat Rock is? I've talked about Flat Rock. Okay, well, you went up that road, and up there, it was, well, I don't know where the old thing's up there now, but that's where the water was, because the water came up there in the mountain that high, and then they piped it down into the old hotel there, and that's how they got the water over there. And there was 100 or 125 or 30 pounds of pressure, and it was too great for the old pipes, so then they had to put a reducer in it on the way down. Pressure reducer, so only so much would win. And then they built all that stuff out around there over the years, and that people come here from all around them, and they had a man that kept everything running there at one time. He knew everything about what was going on, how to fix everything. Well, he finally died because he was getting along. He was a kid. Us great kids used to fool with him, but he knew what he was doing. We just thought he was the greatest man in the world because he could fix anything. And but that's how that has developed up to where it is today, up there. And, I don't know what all you want to know about. I try and tell you as much as I can about it, but I was born and like I said, born and raised here, and Newport knew everybody in town. Houses sold for $700 and $800 on the main street. If you had money to buy a house, it cost a lot of money. And of course, there was no water in the houses. Everybody used cisterns and that stuff. We had a cistern in the old house where we lived at 89 East Main Street. We had a cistern there that was it held 25 or 30,000 gallons of water. It was a huge cistern. It was 40 or 50 feet long, and I think it was 8 feet deep. And we had to clean it. But they used a pump, and they'd pump the water out in the spring of the year. And everybody would get down in there. We'd take brushes, and they'd put a cleaner. I don't know what they put in the water, but they cleaned it, and they brushed all them walls down in that old cistern. They cleaned them all down. Then they used stuff to sanitize them, and then they closed them up. They had a big lid on them. They closed them up, and then the water on the cistern at home there came down in a double pipe from off the roof. And after it rained a while, they'd say, go out and throw that thing over now. The water's clean enough to go in, and it went down through I forget what they put in a charcoal box. I think it was charcoal. And they put it. The water come off the roof, down through that charcoal box and went in the cistern, and that's what we drank. Hand pumped it, carried it into the house, and that took a bath in the outside room on the house. There was an old room where you went out of the house, and that's where they cooked in the summertime. The stuff was in there, and then of course in the summertime we'd get down where the bridge is there. We come out of Newville, we'd get down and crawl under the bridge down there, take our clothes down there, and get in there and take a bath there, and I'd run of water, and then wade out and get dried off, and then put her clothes on, and go back up the street to the house. But that's how you got a bath. And there was chickens that built. I don't think that building's there now. Well, no, it's not there now. But Whitmer's had a house there. They used old white trucks that had solid tires, chain drive, and they haul chickens into the city, into New York. Now you can imagine how long it took for an old truck. 2 weeks. It took 2 days to run from there to New York.
Yeah.
And there was a big old house there, and that's where they dressed the chickens. They had a big concrete tank, and when they killed the chickens and dressed them, they had a thing that took them up there, and they threw them in that there cold water tank. And then when they were all cleaned and dressed, and then they pack them in ice, and that's how they hauled them into New York City. Them old white trucks. And everybody butchered. We used to butcher 5 hogs every fall out in the back alley. Can't do that anymore. So we went out there and we raised the hogs right there in well, our house ran from back to the alley, where the alley is there in Main Street. And we had the hog pen over there, so we raised the hogs there, and we killed them in the alley, put them on the hangers and dressed the hogs, and then took everything up back over, and we had a big cellar in the house there, and that house had a good cellar in it. Put everything down there, and then we hand rubbed it with, they called it dressing the meat, but it was cured the meat. And then after that settled, part of the cistern we had, or part of the basement, we had that stuff all washed off, and that's where you put the stuff in there, and you kept it in there. I mean, it would stay cold, but you could get ice, because they took ice off the lake out of Dublin. Now you can imagine that. They took the ice off the lake. And in there, where you come in from Dublin now, where the bridge is there, right before you get into Newville, there's a road that went right down there back to that corner house. That went right down along the creek there, and there was an ice house down there, and that's where they stored ice down in there in the wintertime. Big old ice house. They packed it in there and they put it in sawdust. And when they wanted ice, they went out there and get 2 or 3 big cakes, and they'd bring them in. And there at the spring where they had that, that's where they cut them and hauled the stuff out over town in a horse and wagon. There was a lot of difference between what it is today.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of things it has, but I've been blessed that I was raised in that era. And like I said, a good house sold for $500 or $800. That was a big price for a house at that time. And they had water. When they put the water in them houses, of course they had to go in the street, and then they'd come up through the basements with the water. But that's going back a good many years ago too, that they had all that. And there were Tom, where we live, we come into Newville, coming into Newville, the first house on the left. Tom Hirsch lived in that house there. Mollers lived in the next house. Mowry's lived in the 3rd house. Swartz's lived in the 4th house. The 5th turf Benders live in the 5th house. And then Bill Baldusser still living. He was my neighbor across. He was in the next house across the street there. And then it went from there on up, and you knew everybody in town. I carried papers all over town for years when I was a kid, and you got to know everybody. And hey, I was blessed that I was able to go. And if you ask me some things, I could probably talk forever on some of these things, but I don't like to do that. I mean, it's just. But it was quite a different series to see all them old Model Ts and that kind of stuff, and the horses and wagons are going. They went to Carlisle with the horse and wagon, or even down all the time. and everybody helped everybody. But there was a broom maker lived right next to us. We lived, Whitmer's was the first place, our house was the second place. And there was an old gentleman lived, well, he was an elderly man then, but he was a broom maker. He lived right next to us. He made brooms. Now, you can imagine making a broom by hand. And he had all that stuff and wanted to put the stuff on and trimmed them all up, and he was done. He had a good broom. He sold a lot of brooms. And a lot of the houses didn't have bathrooms in them. They had toilets halfway down the yard. We had one for years. I forget how long it was. I already told you how long it was before we got a bath in the house. And then every spring, they get down, they'd come around, they'd shovel them out and clean that out and haul that away. And any excess water that used to run out, and they filtered it through wood and that stuff down, but the water came the whole way down through town, right, all drained all around from all off the streets and that stuff. It all came down through under the bridges and that's where the road went down through there. And then they made them quit getting stuff in the road that you couldn't put anything in it like that and all. But it's, I tell you, I have a brother living, he's 102, and we all grew up in the same house. And I have a sister that's living yet. She was born in 45.
She was born in
45.
35.
35. She was born in 35, yeah. So, I'll need a lot of changes. See that the, matter of fact, the trolley used to come up through Newville, and it went out where the, you've been in Newville, I'm sure.
Mm-hmm.
You know out there where the trucking place is at the end of Big Spring Avenue when you go out?
Yep.
Okay. See, that was a beer joint one time out there. And right down over the hill then, instead of going down, when you go out there, you go down around the hill like you're going over to the home over there.
Mm.
And then that road that goes down to the left there's a driveway goes down through there. That's where they purified all the water and stuff down through there, but then it pumps it right out in the spring.
Yeah.
And they finally made them quit that because then they had to put a filter system in there and everything. But and coal there at the upper warehouse now, that's out on Buchanan Street out there. They brought everything in, everything come in by train. And you used to go out there and they'd used to get up in the truck and had a slide hook up there and you could slide that back and that would put the coal out on the truck bed and then you could slide it shut. I mean, the way they were designed, you could do that because it was only so big and less coal. And then my dad used to haul coal down Main Street and take it into where the creamery was there where they took the milk in. So you back up there and he had a 1.5 ton or a 2-ton box that he put on his truck. 2 pins went out through the side of it with an iron over them. And I'd just stand on there and when he'd get down there, he'd back up and I was big enough I could pull a lever across. Well, I'd raise the end gate and left it fall up and then it went down the hole into the basement with where they took the milk in there. And that's how they got the stuff around. And then, of course, when you went to Dublin, the fair, you know about the fair that used to be out there along the road.
No, I haven't heard of it.
Yeah, well, when you go out, what's it, 2.5 mile maybe, 3 out there, that was where the Mifflin Fair was for years.
Okay.
And that's where the women put on the stuff, the canned stuff and all that. And that was a big time. That lasted for like 2 weeks. And the people come with the guys you played to see the fellas that were all dressed up and everything that they done. And you could go in there, you had to pay a nickel to get in to see them, which was a lot of money
Yeah.
at that time. And the airplanes landed there. They'd take you for a ride in that field. It was field there, and World War I airplanes. These guys would come around them kind of places and had these old open planes, and they'd take you a ride for $1 or $2 because nobody had any money, but a lot of people would ride in. I never rode in any. I didn't like them. But there's just, I don't know, there's, you could talk, I guess, forever about it, but I don't know. Ask me some of the things you want to know because I could.
Sure. Well, you mentioned that you spent a little time up by the Dublin Gap Hotel.
Yeah.
As a child, did you do any exploring in terms of like the caves, like Lewis Cave or anything like that?
That was up on the mountain there. Yeah, we used to hunt all that stuff up because we was afraid of it. Though, he might. Well, you want to watch old Lewis might be there, but then he also went across to Dublin. He had a place going across the mountain over to Dublin. He had Mount Plump Cave, what they call a cave over there. Yeah, we used to try and explore all them places, and then they built a lot of that up. And see, there was nothing up along there now on the left-hand side of the road coming in, where that is in there. That's all been built in there, and then they opened that all up and put them cabins and all that stuff in there. And there was. I don't know if you. I mean, there's probably a lot of things you'd like to know, and I'd like to tell you, but I don't know how to always get started at it.
Sure. Well, I mean, so they put in the new water lines in the early 30s. Is it at that time were a lot of the roads still unpaved, or like the main roads in Newville?
Well, the roads were paved, but they didn't do the paving like they did. A lot of them were dirt yet. A lot of them were dirt, packed down dirt, because of course, but when they did first pave them, that's when they used to raise up when the sun came out until summertime.
Yeah.
You get them big humps. You had to really just crawl out, just up over them and get down. But then they fixed it when they got other kinds of macadam. But I'm sure they took those wooden things out of the water there. They took them to. Well, I told you where did I tell you they took them down to Mechanicsburg. They had a place, and they kept them somewhere. I don't know where they still got any of them or not.
Sure. Well, I'm just wondering. I mean, when they finally, paved the roads, I know a few people mentioned that's when a lot of people started like roller skating to school and stuff. Was that after your time though, or is that a little bit before?
Roller skating.
Yeah.
Oh, I roller skated on all the streets when they were good all around. I used to go to all the Ace of Hearts in Chambersburg, and I had an old first car I had, the old 28 Chevrolet, wooden body on it. Got lots of good gas mileage. Windshield wiper, you reached up, turned it that way.
Yeah.
And yeah, I roller skated an awful lot around this place. Ace of Hearts, and I can't tell you. There was a lot of them around. Gas was cheap. Gas wasn't very much. 6-8 cents a gallon for gas. Farmers used to bring tanks in on a horse and wagon. They'd bring a tank in or pull a tractor, and they'd come in and get 40-50 gallon of gas to use in the old tractors they used on the farms. But they were like everything else. They didn't work right, but they'd done a lot of work. And I can remember a lot of things. It was hard for me to get them together to tell you.
No. I'll keep asking questions though.
Well, you keep asking, I'll answer.
So, Newville, the school system at that time, I know the surrounding areas all had one-room schoolhouses, but did you attend like a unified, larger school building?
The schoolhouse was in Newville. Up there, when you go up Main Street, there before you get up to where the red light is, where you turn up over the hill to the left, up there where the old, it's a firehouse now.
Yeah.
That was the old high school up there. That was up there. And the people that lived going out of the road going over to Bloser, or going out, well, you went out to the left, out toward,
About 533.
yeah, outside
Center,
33.
over toward
The
Center.
lady that lived over there in the hill, Katie, oh man, she walked from there to school, down through Newville, to where you went down to the school was down there on top of the hill. And she walked that every day, but she lived, the line was here, and she lived about 35, 40 feet away from where the town line was. So she lived in the country. And the back across there was weeds because she couldn't walk that way. So she walked in up that hill, down the main street in Newville, down the main street, down to place, and down to school every day to school, winter and summer. They walked. They didn't have any. Well, somebody would take them in a horse and buggy, but kids all walked to school. It didn't matter where you went. And you went barefoot in summertime. When you got out of school, they'd say, "Give me your shoes, boy." Well, I might, you won't need them anymore. They'll do you another year yet. So my dad would take my shoes, and he'd put them up, and you went barefooted. If you wanted to play baseball in the old field, well, you ran over the stones and everything. Your feet could stop. But I've often said, people say about it, I said, people that never knew about it or talked about it never knew how everything was done, because you had to do, and every night I had to bring the wood over from the shed, which was back on the alley where we kept the hogs, where they butchered the hogs. My job was to get the wood that was there and bring that to the house. I took a wagon, and that spring went down through there, and we had a narrow walk that went across. And of course, every now and then, if you'd miss the walk, it'd fall down the water, and you'd have to get down after it and pick it up. But we raised our own chickens and everything. Got our own eggs. And the eggs was underneath the old, where the barn was. It was an old barn. And my dad was in the trucking business, and when he put the doors on there, he put 2 sliding doors on there, and he backed his truck in there. Well, then they took and they propped up the part of it and put heavy plank in there. But that's when the chicken house was. That's how the chicken house got covered. You had to go out there and you crawled underneath there to get the eggs out, because half of the garage was over the chicken place, and they had to fix that they wouldn't fall down on the chickens. And then inside there were stairs that went up to the top, and up there, that's where you kept a lot of stuff up there that you didn't use right away. You keep it up there, but and you fixed everything yourself. Your bicycle, I bought a bicycle for 50 cents. First bicycle I had when I was carrying papers. I walked, and then I got a bicycle. And I carried paper all over town for a good many years when I was a kid. I used to know everybody that lived everywhere.
Yeah.
Then Saturday morning, you had to go out, and then you walked on Saturday morning, because then you'd walk around and had to stop at every house and couldn't ride a bicycle. That's where you walk the route, and then they'd pay you a nickel for whatever it was for the papers for a week, and then you had to go down up to the bank, and then they'd make you out a thing. You have to send that into Harrisburg, where the paper come from. Papers come on the train. Most of them come on a 4 o'clock train at Newville.
So this wasn't the Valley Times Star?
Well, the Valley Times was made there in Newville.
Yeah.
Valley Times was made there in the corner of Chestnut Street. There's a building there. Yeah, it's right on the corner, but that's where the paper was. Where the paper was made in Newville there. And the buses that ran to Carlisle was right down that street there, and they hauled people down to Maslin's 3 shifts.
Okay.
The 7 o'clock shift, the bus would come down there, down to the square there, and everybody come to the square down at Newville there. And then they'd take them down. I drove a bus down there for a good many years to them too. I'd done a little bit of everything. We had, well, hey, anything you do is make a nickel or a dime at, And
So even with all the like the knitting factory and the shoe factory and the bottling plant,
shoe factory.
people still worked at Maslin's?
Oh yeah, you mean back that time?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah, and the old gentleman that used to run the plant there in Newville, I can picture him. I can't tell you his name right now. It'll come to me. But he could bawl just like a calf. I mean, and he used to get us kids up in there, and that was 3 stories high, that old building. And he was good at it. He'd say, "Boys, come up here. I want to show you something." And about the time you get up there, where'd he go? Where'd he go? And you couldn't hear him. And all of a sudden he'd bawl. But he used to tell us that boys, you got to watch, because I know every place in this building, and he did. Even first, second, third floor, he'd get away from you quicker. But he just do it just the devil us.
And which building was this again? I'm sorry.
Huh?
What building was this again?
Well, there it's gone now. It's the building was right on top of the hill there, the old knitting mill.
Oh,
called.
okay. Yeah.
You've heard about it. It was right there up
Yeah.
the top of the hill there. And see, when you went up that hill there, the water for the trains was right there to the left. The tracks originally went up right where the bridge was across there. They went up past where the, well, I got some pictures of some of that stuff around here. When I see, there's a picture, that's the old, that's the
That
old,
looks like the knitting mill.
that's the old knitting mill. But see, now that is when the train came right down along there and went right down by them houses there, and then it crossed, and then it went on down to Carlisle. And that's what they called a low line. Then in 15 or 16, they moved that line up on top of the hill where the, well, I guess there's still something up there now that goes down through there. I don't know what it might be, but that's where they moved the train up there with. And then they had the cart that they went up to the train, they brought that all back down. When you wanted to get on the train, you went into the station down there, and the train stopped. You could walk out and get in it. I've got some pictures of it around somewhere. But then when they moved it up, then you had to walk up the hill to get in the train, because then they had double tracks up there. Because the train went up and down both ways, went up to Chambersburg. Then they had a turnaround up there. It never went over to Maryland or anything. When you got up Chambersburg or the Maryland line, then they had to have what they called a roundhouse up there. So then the train came back the other tracks. But they ran trains all night long there. Freight and everything went up there, and then they put it on the stuff in Maryland. It's
Now, did you also have an opportunity to see the trolley, the Newville trolley, or?
yeah, the trolley ran back. I forget when it quit, but it come from Carlisle up.
Mm-hmm.
The trolley came up, it went right up the main street there.
Yeah.
See, but see, that's what it said. It used to go up the main street, and then it went out at Big Spring Avenue, and it turned out there where the trucking place is today.
Yep.
And what he done, he'd get out of it and walk around, pull that control down, and then let it snap up on the line. Then it would run. Then it would take it back. Then he'd drive from the other end. He drove them trolleys from both ends.
Okay. Yeah.
And then they got off. Some of the places they rode at the edge of the road now, like down at well, after you come out in Newville, they'd come down the road there, and then when they got down there where the long flat was, then the trolley ran off to the left-hand side. The tracks were over there. They get down, and when they got down where you go back to the Blowsville Road,
Mm-hmm.
trolley crossed to the other side, and then it rode in there. Well, then when they got to build the houses on, when you got down to the town, right, little place right there by where the houses are, people
Is
where.
it Plainfield or?
No, that's before you get where Paul or where Pat Beam and them lived there. That little place right
West
before
Hill?
you,
West Hill?
West Hill. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Then the trolley came out in the middle, and it followed that down. As soon as it got away from that, it went on one side or the other. It went down to Blowsville Road. That's where it crossed from one side to the other, because they had on the left-hand side. It was easier to go over the other side because then they had a straight and run down there, and then they came back out again and went down through the center. And as they began to build houses, then they began to get them more out in the center of the street. And finally, they eventually had to quit them because the trolleys didn't run anymore. I mean, they got overrun. But it was quite a different story as it is today.
Well, is that how your family got to Carlisle and back, or did you take a horse and buggy or a car?
My grandparents had a horse and buggy. That's how they got to Carlisle. I used to ride down with that. That took a long trip to come down over with a horse and buggy to Carlisle.
Yeah.
And then, see, I wasn't born until 21, but then by 25, I guess my dad was in the trucking business then. But then time they had the old time trucks, and they wouldn't run the kids to Carlisle that way. And then we got a car, and they had.
So you don't think you ever took the trolley, or?
I don't remember of riding a trolley to Carlisle. I really don't, because I would have no business to go. But I remember when you come down through Carlisle, you remember that, did they ever tell you about the deer that was in there?
Yeah, like moorland deer.
Well, that was all down through Carlisle there at the beginning up there. That was just full of deer down through there. And then as they began to build, they began to get them together, and then finally they just shut them out altogether. And the train went through Carlisle up until right now I can't tell you when. The train came down the track, and there at where the Newville Road comes down underneath there. Then when the train went down along the left-hand side there, and just before you get to the edge of Newville, or the edge of Carlisle, it came out in the center and went right down the center street in Carlisle, clean to the other end. And then it crossed over. But it was quite a day. In Carlisle, when you went into Carlisle going down, you parked this way, down in. But you couldn't cross the tracks.
Yeah.
You had to get down to where the street was, come up, and then going out, you had to park that way. So you didn't park straight, because they could put more cars in that way when they had cars, and they were built for that, and that. But there was a lot of things I've seen grow in Carlisle, but I mean, I don't know. I've been blessed in my time many times. My brother could probably tell you a little more, but he's out in Montana, so I don't know. We used to talk about it a lot, but like I said, he's 102 years old, so I talked to him in call him on the phone every now and then. But my other brother, we just went up to see my other brother here. Yesterday we went up to see my other brother. He's, what is Bob?
89.
He's 89. And so my sister's, well, she was born
35.
35. Yes, she was
She'll be
born
83.
35. She has, I guess, Alzheimer's, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, she has Alzheimer's. I talk to her every now and then. She'll say, I want to ask you something, but I don't know what it is. And that's the way my mother got it. But that was a common thing, I think, with some of the older people. But my grandparents come from Prairie County.
Okay.
We used to go over there, and that was a long haul. To ride over the old mountain and down there and up the Henry's Valley Road, and have to get over there and mud my oh my. Anything, I don't know, anything you ask, I'll try and answer it if I can, but I just...
Sure. Well, here, let me ask you, what were your parents' names?
My dad's name was Wilbur. My mother's name was Paul Spahr.
Okay. And, how did they get to Newville?
Well, my dad was born in Carlisle. And my mother was born in, my mother was born in Prairie County, over in Fowler's Hollow. Now, her dad was, forget what he did.
Didn't he work for the sawmill? Or was that
No,
your
that
uncle?
That was the uncle that worked for the sawmill that was sawed by the saw. That was after my mother came. They brought her over to Newville in a horse and buggy. She was 2 or 3 weeks old because her father died. He got pneumonia or something, and she had 2 other children. And she couldn't live when she lived over in Prairie County in what they called Fowler's Hollow. And we used to take her over there years ago. Well, my dad would take her over and he'd say, Myrtle, go up and see if your mother's home. And I can see my mother walk up that old path up there, and the house set on kind of a hill, and she'd rap on the door and, who's there? Myrtle, go away, I don't know you. She shut the curtain. I could hear my grandmother say that for years. My dad could go up there. And what did I say her name was? He'd name her. Oh, Bill, how are you? Now, she knew my dad, but she couldn't remember my mother that she was born because they took her away when she was only
3 weeks old.
2 weeks old. They brought her across the horse and buggy. They brought her across the mountain and gave her to her sister. But she never could remember my mother. My mother, we kids, we used to ride and go over there, and we'd think that was funny that she'd go up there, and when my mother would rap on the door, we'd often see her pull the curtain back, and she'd say, go away, I don't know you. And I can hear her say that. And my mother would come down kind of crying. She'd say, Bill, she don't know who I am. My dad would get out of that old car, and he'd walk up there, and he'd rap on the door, and she'd say, Wilbur, how are you? Now, it was just that was age. Then later on, she came over to Harrisburg to live with the one daughter. That's where she died, down there. You know, she'd come over here, and of course, her sister, she had a sister and a brother that had come over here. And then later on, when she lived by herself, she couldn't, she wouldn't eat or anything like that. So the two that had come over, the two other children, they brought her over to Harrisburg with her, and that's where she died, down there. But she lived with them then. But if you'd get down there, and I mean, if she would know me, and even when my dad would, when she'd know who he was yet, but she never would know who my mother was because she had taken mother away when she was only two weeks old, 2 weeks or too old like that, because she couldn't raise 3 children at that time back where they lived. And it was, I'll tell you what, it was, well, I grew up in a different time. That's what a lot of people say. And I said, hey, I said, we always had plenty to eat, but we worked. We never had a lot of money, and that I was blessed. Tell you.
Did your mother work in any of the Newville factories, or?
No, mother worked in the store. My dad went in the store business in the 30s. He quit trucking, and well, see, he was. I forget how well. No, she helped in the store some. My mother did. Of course, us kids were all grown pretty much then, and were able to go. And that's the time when I had scarlet fever, and when she couldn't work at the store then because the doctor found out I had scarlet fever. They quarantined the house, so she had to stay home, and my dad had to go out and live with his sister out in Newtown because the store was uptown. He went out and lived with his sister because then he wasn't connected because we were quarantined for 30 days. And my mother used to, that old linoleum floor, she'd say, Paul, you're just making flushed all over the floor. I said, I can't help it. The skin just peeled off me like it was bad. But that's what scarlet fever did to me. And I had that, and she stayed home and cared for us. My other brother, he went with one of his other friends, and the other brother was just a couple of years older than me, and he stayed home, but they couldn't go to school.
What about Aunt Dot? Did she stay home? Because she was between you and Uncle Ed.
No, I don't know where she went. I don't know where she went because I don't think she stayed home, but it was, I think, Charlie and I think it was Charlie and Bob and I and Mother, I think, was there.
Maybe Aunt Dot went out to Aunt Etta's.
Well, she went, but I don't think she stayed because she was a little older than us. And but you know, the people would take you in most anywhere if they relations. They would always find a place for you to sleep or something like that. But no, I can see my mother yet getting down and washing that floor, just peeled like a snake. I mean, just skin just peeled up. That's funny, but they said that's the way it worked. But I had it for 30 days. I remember that. And There's probably a lot of other things I could sit and talk about, but I have to think about them a little bit anymore.
Sure. Well, hey, well, maybe I'll just ask. So, you graduated from Newville High School in 39, thereabouts.
Me?
Yeah.
No. I went to school. I said I was 5. I got an early start in school. And 40. You say 45.
39.
39.
Yeah, because Mother graduated in 44.
Yeah. Well, I was 6. And there were, what, 17 years of high school, 18 years of high school, 6. And 18, 24, I'd have been about 24 years old then.
When? In 44? Yeah.
Yeah, well,
Well, you and Mother got married, you were...
yeah, but see,
20.
that was a problem too, to a certain extent. I had worked at a lot of things. Like I said, I was the trucking business. I hauled milk and anything. You hauled coal and anything you could get a hold of. I had to truck it. A lot of times I didn't get home at 10 o'clock at night, and used to get up in the morning and run 2 milk routes in the morning and then come back and do something in the afternoon. But anyway, I didn't finish high school. I finished my last year, and I said, I want a car. My dad said, you got to finish school. I said, I'm not going to finish school because I didn't pass. I missed one subject. And they said, no, you're going to take that over. I said, no, I'm not. And I bought an old 1928 Chevrolet. I did. I quit school. And after I worked all them years doing whatever I done, nobody ever questioned. And after I worked a good many years, and I finally went to work for Hershey. After I growed up and was married, I went to work for Hershey Chocolate. I went down there, and the guy interviewed me down there, and I talked to him about people, and he said, what do you want to do? I said, I've met people all my life. And I said, I know the inspection system, and I said, I'd like to work for you people. So I went to work for Hershey, and I worked for them 30-some years, I guess. But anyway, it was one of the funny things that happened. I had worked for them, I don't know how long, and they would come around and they said, well, you know, you got to learn to do this in case you have a car that stops or anything. And so we went through all that, and they called me in one day, and the fellow said, how long have you been here? I said, a good while. He said, when did you graduate from school? I'll never forget him. I said, I didn't graduate. He said, what? I said, I never graduated. He said, you can't work here. I said, what do you mean I can't work here? He said, the law says you've got to be a graduate. Our law, you've got to graduate from high school before you can work here. I said, I've been here so many years. He said, Paul, that don't matter. He said, I'll check with him. So he kept me around there, and he checked, and he came back. He said, tell you what, he said, you've got a problem. I said, what's that? He said, they're going to fire you. I said, man, they're not going to fire me. I said, I've got 365 farms, and I know where they all are. He said, we don't care if you got 460 farms. I said, what do I have to do? He said, you got to go back to school. That's just exactly the way he put it. He said, let me look this thing up. So he came back out. He said, tell you what you got to do. He said, they have a school. And he said, you got to go back and finish, and you got to get your high school diploma. I said, do you realize how old I am? He said, yeah. And I realize you better learn that, and you've only got so many weeks to do it. Or, he said, they're going to lay you off. So I went, and I've still got that old diploma that I got too. It was
Your GED.
Huh?
The GED.
It is called a GED, general case. But I got it, and I worked for them all the rest of the year until I was retired from them. But yeah.
Well, the reason I asked was, You mentioned at the beginning that you entered the service, and I was wondering if that was what you did after, a little bit after you graduated, or after you finished up with high school in Newville there.
Well, well, yeah, I went to service in 30. Well, the war broke out in 1940, didn't it?
42. Oh, I mean the U.S. entered in 42,
You
43.
probably went to service. You and Mother were married in 44.
Yeah.
So you probably went to service before that.
Yeah, I went and well, when I become of age,
Well, so
I forget when it was, Paul. I'd have to look again.
21 and 18, 39.
I'd have to look when it was
I mean,
anymore.
you probably went into service.
But I know that when I went in, that's when I said that they shipped me off to Tennessee. I traveled for 3 days on the train. I had no idea where it was, and I wound up in Tennessee and Tullahoma. That's where the old first sergeant said to me when I went in there, and they just said, "This, when you get off the train, you go here, you go here, you go there," and there was a car there waiting. They took it. I had no idea where it was going. Well, I got out there, and then he's the old boy that when I went out there and I was going down across the field, and he came out of the office and he yelled, "Elmer!" I can hear him to this day, and I kept on going because that wasn't my name. When he hollered the second time, then I knew that was my name. He said, "Back here." I said, "What do you want with me? My name's Paul." He said, "No." "When did you get in here?" I said, "Yesterday." He said, "From now on, your name's Elmer. Don't you ever forget it." So that's how I got to go with my full name. I put my name down. He said, "From now on, you're Elmer Paul." I said, "But you don't need to write to Paul. Just put Elmer P. Spahr." I said, "I hate that." He said, "Well, I'm telling you, don't ever do it again." And of course, I never did. But you learned. But I was blessed that I got along as well as I did. Hey,
Now, was that the Army then?
yeah.
Did you mainly serve stateside, or did you have to
I was
go
in
overseas?
stateside all the time, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know whatever happened. I know something happened that I come to was in the hospital, so I don't know what it was. They said I fell, so I guess I did. We were on a 25-mile hike, and I come to, and the guy said, "Where's the rest of the fellows?" "Oh, they're going." I said, "Well, how long have I been here?" "You've been here long enough to know that they're going." Okay. So they left me out of there then, and that's when they, I don't forget where they sent me to then again. I got back with them, but then they had another thing that they had to go through, and of course when I went through that, the old boy said, you can't go along now." He said, "You can't go out of here with that leg like that." I said, "What do you mean? Ain't nothing wrong with my leg. I've had it all my life." He said, "No." He said, "We're going to send you to someplace else." So then I departed, and the next thing I knew, I was on a train coming home. So, but I've had both my knees replaced since then, so I've got nothing in there but 2 kneecaps anymore. Everything's all metal. And I had to have it done, so I don't know.
Now, did a lot of the people that you went to school with, did they end up working in the various factories around Newville, or
A lot of them did. A lot of them went away. Now,
after, did they serve it as well?
a lot of them did, yeah.
And
A lot
they-
of
they
fellows
did
that I
come
went to
back,
school
or-
with. Huh?
No, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, they say that some of them come back.
No, I meant so after they served, they moved on from Newville.
Oh, a lot of them did. Yeah, they got married and then they moved to where they got married. Fellows who went, but it was. No, I've been blessed in my time. Many times. I didn't realize a lot of times.
But you mentioned someone that you went to school with. Did they end up staying in the area, or?
In the Army,
Or I don't know.
Colonel-
The story
Colonel-
before I interrupted you.
Well, Colonel Hurley, he just died.
Okay.
Him and I went to school together. That was the fella. We were both the same age, and we went to school. And I hated history with a passion. History was not my subject.
Yeah.
And he hated mathematics. And there where the light is in Newville, I lived down the second house on the right-hand side coming in. And where you turn up over the hill, he lived the third house on the left and the two street lights between us.
Mm.
And I tell you what you do, he said, you come up and do my mathematics, I'll do your history. And that's what we done all through high school. He done my mathematics, or he done my history, and I done my mathematics. And of course, when he went in service, he went in the Air Force, and he had to know history. And he said, Paul, I hated that with a passion. Correct. He said, when they told me you got to learn that, he said, I didn't take that in school. He said, how'd you get through? He said, my friend done it for me. And he was right ahead of me when we went into service. I could hear him get. He went in there and he said, Hurley, yeah, you passed. What do you want to do? He said, I want to go to the Air Force. He said, keep walking. That's the way they treated him. When I went up there and he said to me, what do you want to do? I said, I want to go home. He said, 10 days. Don't forget to get back and we're going to go after you. But that they told everybody that, you know. But
Yeah.
I've known him. He just passed away. How long ago has it been since Dick died? Not too long.
February.
Huh?
February. Toward the
February.
end of February.
Knowed him all my
He
life.
was 97.
He was 97.
So they'd been friends from the time they were 5 years old.
Yeah. He was.
And kept pretty much in touch. And
Yeah, we did for a long time. Well, we always kept in touch. He always knew where I was, and I always knew where he was, and I called him. But tell you, them boys like that are getting few.
well,
Very
you
few.
two decided that you were probably the last two in your class.
Well, we were the last two of that class. Yeah, we tried to. He was president of that class for years, and we had a meeting. We got together one day, and I'll never forget it. We were sitting down there, and he said, "You know something, Paul?" I said, "What?" He said, "You and I's the only two old buggers left anymore." I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "All these other people around here." He said, "They aren't of our class." He said, "They're relatives out of people we knew." I said, "What do you mean, Dick?" He said, "Just look around." So we began to look around and count. He and I was only was two left us out of the old original class.
Wow.
Now he died, and so, but he was a good friend. Well, I don't know.
Yeah, well, we've been talking for an hour, but
Well, I don't
I still
know.
have a
whether-
lot more questions, but I know your daughter's here, and so I
Well,
can
you asked
certainly
me
come back.
if you what?
You
I can
ask
come back.
questions.
Well, you can. I'm going to stay here. She has to go home tomorrow, and she was just out doing some stuff for me that she can do, and I had her to take care of it for me. I don't drive anymore or anything, so
Well,
I'll be quiet and you ask me now.
Well, so all right. So you came back from service. Well, what did you end up? What was that first job you had? Sort of, maybe right before you got married there in '44.
What was who? Well, I was in the trucking business then.
Was that your?
No,
Yeah, huh?
you not then.
44.
When you and Mother got married, didn't you work for Hayes Cox at the hardware store?
Oh, yeah, I guess it did. Yeah, I worked in a hardware. Hayes Cox, he needed somebody. Oh, yeah, he needed a guy to fix sweepers. I was always kind of felt I could fix most anything. And anything there was, I took a time to learn how to fix it. He'd say, yeah, I did. I guess I worked for Hayes. He said, I need this done. Who do you know somebody to do it? I said, yeah, I know somebody for what? He said, it's sweepers we need fixed. I said, I'll fix it for you. So I fixed sweepers for him. He was in the hardware business, and I fixed sweepers for him. And anything he wasn't fixed, I'd do it for him. He said, where'd you learn that? I said, when you grew up like I learned up, you learned to fix everything because you didn't pay to get anything done. You learned to do it yourself. And I said, I've been blessed that I was able to do that. So I've been...
Then you worked for Masland.
Oh, I worked for Madison's too, and I
And
don't
you
think.
drove school bus.
Oh, I drove school bus for years too. I drove Madison. I worked for Madison. Yeah, and I worked for Madison's, and I kept the books. And they had a job come open, and I applied for it. And the old boy that I worked for, he was kind of a funny fellow. He ran everything in his department. I applied for that job, and they hired another guy. And I went over and I said, "What's the matter?" I said, "I applied for that job, and you know damn well I'm qualified for it." "Well, we like you where you're at." I said, "Well, you know what? I'd like to advance a little bit better." So it wasn't long, and another one came open, and I applied for that. Same thing happened. So I called his boss. I said, "I know you got a boss. I'm going to call him." He said, "What for?" I said, "None of your business." So I called him, and I said, "Can I come over and see you?" He said, "Yeah." I told him. "Well," he said, "Paul, you know," he said, "I've been here a long time too." And he said, "Old Bill's that way?" He said, I said, "No, old Bill ain't going to be that way long, because I'm done working the end of this week." So the end of the week come, and I said, "Bill," he said, "you coming in Saturday to finish out the payroll for Monday?" I said, "No, that's your job." He said, "That ain't my job, that's yours." I said, "No, it's your job Saturday, because I'm not coming in anymore. Where are you going?" I said, "I don't know, but I'm not working for you people anymore. I quit." "What are you going to do?" Bill's never been without a job. "I'll find something to do." So I never went back. I went in and got my final pay from him. He said, "I wish you'd have stayed." I said, "No, no, no." I said, "You're not going to treat me like that." I said, "I know a few things." I said, "I've done a few things in my life, and I've never been without work." So I said, "I got something to do." "What are you doing?" I said, "Right now I'm working for myself." "Well, how did you do that?" I said, "I went out and I bought 2 milk rods." "Where'd you get the money?" I said, "None of your business." That's when they had them Papa had them milk rods. He said, "I'm going to get rid of them milk rods." I said, "No, you don't need to get rid of them. You just sell them to me, and I'll pay you so much till I get them paid for." So that's the way I bought them. Then I went and I hauled milk from the farms to the dairy for a good many years. That's when them cans weighed 125 pounds full of milk, you know. The cans weighed 85 pounds of milk, and them cans were like 35 pounds, empty. So I done that for a good while. For that, and then
At least
then I got a water.
Well, because you went to work at Beltuvers in
I
the meat
worked at
department.
Yep. worked
Because
meat.
I think it was either 57 or 59 when you started with Hershey.
Yeah, I was working for Beltuvers then. I was cutting.
Yeah.
They needed a meat cutter. I went down there. I said, "What are you looking for?" And old Pappy Ryder was there. He said, "How are you?" I said, "Fine." I said, "They tell me you need a meat cutter." "Yeah. What do you do?" I said, "I'll cut anything you got. Just tell me how you want it cut, and I'll cut it." "Where'd you learn to cut meat?" I said, "I've worked at that trade too." I said, "I can cut meat." So he brought a quarter of beef out. He said, "Let me see you cut that up." I said, "Okay." I got the saw and I cut it apart and said, "This is where that goes and that's there." And I said, "And this piece here," I said, "that's the best piece in the whole piece of beef." He said, "Well, baby, do you know what you're talking about?" I said, "Yep." I said, "Pete, that's the best piece of beef on there. And don't give that to anybody. You cut that and sell that for the most money." He said, "I believe you'll be all right working with me." So I worked with Pappy Ryder for a good while. He was a good old fella. Yeah.
Then you had the opportunity to go to Hershey, and
Yeah, that's what I said. Then
That
I
was,
had
like
then
I
I had
said,
to
that
go
was either
then I had to go to
57
school
or
after
59.
that. But I finished. I've done the schooling. I got that old diploma somewhere yet. But
Well, so you were working at the hardware store when you got married. But I'm wondering, how'd you meet your wife?
well, I met her. See, her and Janet were good friends, weren't they? Wasn't it her? Yeah, her and Janet were good friends. Mary, well, Janet's still living, and yeah, her and Janet Seitz, and I had met her, and I had never gone with her, but I'd met her, and the other small lady that married Gladys. I went with Gladys one night, and her and Mary were good friends. And I said, "What's Mary doing?" Well, she's gone with Deemer, I believe it was.
Mm-hmm. Deemer Margaret.
I said I'd like to talk to her, so I called her one day. "What are you doing?" "Well, I'm going out tonight." I said, "When are you going out the next night? You're going to go with me, aren't you?" Well, she said, "You didn't ask me." I said, "I just asked you today." So then I went with her, and we didn't go too long together, I don't think, at that time. Anyway, we went together, and we went to, where did we go? Over the fair one night. Didn't I tell you we went to the fair down there, place?
York Fair?
York Fair. Whenever we went?
I don't remember.
I believe it was. I said, "Let's get down to the York Fair." She said, "Oh, Paul, I've never been down there." I said, I know a way down. I roller skated down there. We'll go down to the York Fair." So we went down to the York Fair, and then we came back, and I got going with her, and then I married her, and she had 2 brothers, and we were married all 70 years,
Almost 70
all
years.
but 2 months. So I've been blessed many times.
Yeah, did you get married at the Church of God in Newville, or?
Married at the Church of God?
Yeah, is that where you got married, or did you get?
Yeah, we got married.
No, you got married
No,
at
no.
in Pap and Grandma's yard out on Big Spring Avenue.
Yeah, Big Spring Avenue, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Well, I went to the Church of God.
You were Lutheran when you guys got married.
No, I was Lutheran, and she was what was she? Wasn't
I don't
they
know
come
where
from
she-
down
West Hill or
down
White
west.
Hill, but I don't remember what she was. But I remember.
Well, anyway,
you
yeah,
were
when she
Lutheran.
were married, we married at her home. She had 2 brothers. We were married at her home. And then I said, "You know what?" I said, "We're not going to run away down to your church down there." And so I don't want to go down to your church. She said, "Well, I don't want to go to your church." I said, "Good. We'll go to the Church of God."
All right.
So that's where we started. We went to Church of God for many years. I still belong there.
Yeah.
And that's where we were going when she was married. I taught Sunday school for her. She taught the ladies' class. I taught the men's class for 45 years. And she taught the ladies' class for almost that long.
Well, she taught the
Yeah.
junior high girls
Yeah.
until I was junior high age. Then she didn't want to teach me, so then she moved up to the high school girls. And then when I moved to the high school girls, she took over the class that my grandmothers were in.
Yeah. We taught high school, or taught Sunday school for a long time. And then the guy said to me one day, he said, "I want you to teach out of the New Bible." I said, "Art, if you want to teach them out of the New Bible," he said, "I've got one." I said, "So have I." But I said, "I'm telling you one thing. I've been teaching the old time Bible for 30-some years. And I know what the New Bible does. And that don't suit me." I said, "You know," I said, "you ask me what you want to ask me about old time Bible, I'll tell you. But I said, that New Bible, I've read it. It don't make any sense to me." I said, "For that long." He said, "Okay, I'll take over." I said, "Good for you." So I took the class next Sunday. I said, "You know what?" I said, "Art's going to be your new teacher." "Why?" I said, "He wants you boys to learn the New Bible. And that's not my bag." I said, "I just don't." I said, "I've never taught it. And I'm not about to try and teach the New Bible when I know the Old Bible." "Well, what are you going to do?" I said, "I'll teach for somebody else or go there and teach." I taught different places around. Mother and I went different classes around different schools for people that I knew. They'd say, "Why don't you come to Sunday school and teach for us Sunday morning?" I said, "If you want to come down, I'll come and teach. But don't forget, I teach the Old Bible. I don't teach out the New one."
Well, and then when they went to Florida for 16 years after
Yeah.
They're retired, and you taught down there.
I
And
taught down there. They got down there. We went down there, and one had a preacher down there. I got to know him real good, and I don't know what he said. He said, "Belong out to church someday." So I went out with him. I got to know him one day. He said, "Understand?" He said, "You sing too." I said, "Yeah, I have." I said, "I played a lot of things." I said, "The elderly lady played the piano. I forget her name. I had one chord that I couldn't hit. I mean, that it was an off chord. It belonged in the song, but I could never. She played it. She said, 'You know that song, Paul?' I said, 'Yep.' But I said, 'I'm telling you right now, I can't hit that one chord right. It just don't ring with me.' She said, 'Don't you worry. We'll run over this, and I'll put a note in there that'll fit you.' And she did. And every time he read that song, somebody said, 'Never heard that chord in there.' That I said, 'No, but that's the only thing that I said, that's the chord that I think belongs there.' I didn't write the music, but I said, that's to me, that's where it belongs." So I taught Bible study there for a long time. But I've been blessed many times.
well, look, when we kids were growing up, you and Carl McDermott and Joe, and
Oh man.
they would get together at least once a month, maybe twice a month on a Friday night or a Saturday night, and the wives would talk and the kids would play and the guys would all play. They had two guitars and a bass and a fiddle.
Mandolin.
So
Well,
that was
days.
our entertainment.
I'll tell you what, I've got 3 guitars. I know there's one mandolin, Brad has it. I've got a violin. And I gave him 8 harmonicas that I had. I played harmonicas for years. After everybody died off, I said to him one day, he said, "Dad, I'll learn to play them." And he hadn't learned to play them yet.
He's still
I
working.
said, "You'll never learn to play them." And I've got some harmonicas I paid $1,100 for. I mean, they're good stuff. I mean, you don't buy them. If you want something good that's going to last, you got to play it, because the key's in that. And then every so often you take them apart and you clean the keys up and shine them up and put them back together and you retune them. And
I was gonna say, did you ever record anything, or?
I had a lot of stuff that we have. Right now, I don't know where a lot of it is anymore.
So I can't get you to play the harmonica for me?
Huh?
I can't get you to play the harmonica for me today?
I don't have any today anymore. I don't have any. I didn't keep. I tell you what, when it got around that all the fellas that I played with have passed away.
Yep.
And I got the harmonicas out here one day, and I was here by myself one day, and I got them out there, and I thought, you know, this is no fun. So I said to my son, he said, "Dad, I'll learn to play them." So I don't know what he ever done with them. I guess I said, "Don't throw
He
them away,"
has 'em.
because I
He
said, "Don't throw them away, because that'll cost a lot of money." I said over the years. I said back when harmonicas are honers, and I said they were good harmonicas. Said, but that's what I said. I've been blessed, and I believe the Lord's blessed me in His way, because a lot of the times it was used for the enjoyment of other people. And you never lose anything that you give away. I've always felt that way. I mean, I don't know, maybe that's the wrong way to feel, but that's the thing. So I don't know where that answers any of your questions or not.
No, yeah.
If you have any questions you ask, I'll try and answer them. But
Well, so you went to work at Hershey.
Yep.
What, late 1950s, early 1960s?
Yeah, 57, 58, or 59,
and I
somewhere in
retired
there.
from there.
Well, so you mentioned that you were working in the inspections.
Yeah, I inspected for state inspection. I was licensed in New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and
New York.
New York.
And what did that involve?
Well, you had to go and inspect the farms. You inspected the
Okay.
equipment and everything. And if they had if trouble on the farms, they got bad milk or anything, they'd sent you had to go out there, and if it's a matter of laying them off for 2 or 3 days, you had to do that. And I went out one day and I told a guy, I said he got I went up and rapped on his door, and he came out, and, you know, some of them talked a little rough to me, you know, well, what are you doing here? I said, you sent for me. He said, I didn't send for you, boy, go away. I said, don't call me boy, I'm older than you. I don't know about that. I said, I know about it. I know how old you are. He said, how old are you? And I told him, well, he said, you are a little bit older than me. I said, yeah, and don't get me wrong. I'm going to come back here in 3 days, and you're not going to sell any milk for 3 days till I come back. He said, you can't do that to me. I said, you watch me do it to you. I said, you don't want me to do that to you? I said, you do what I tell you, or I'll guarantee you don't have a milk market. He said, I'm not going to do it. I said, good. I said, I'll be back in 3 days. So I went back in 3 days. He said, I told you, he said, I got another milk market. I said, good. So I said, where are you going? So he told me. I said, good, I'll call him. No, you don't need to bother calling him. He knows I'm coming. I said, I know, but he'll know you're coming and why you're coming. So I called the guy after I left. I said, do you know him? He said, who are you? I said, I'm the guy that inspected him last. And I'm telling you, if you want to get in trouble with him, you go ahead and take him on. Because I said, I'll tell you, I'll see he don't sell milk to you. He called me a couple of days later. He said, why would you do that to me? I said, because you lied to me and you don't need to lie to somebody else. He said, that fellow said he wouldn't take me. I said, I know that. So he got on another market. About 2 months or so after that, my phone rang one night at home. He called me. He said, what are you doing? I said, I'm sitting here enjoying the peace and quiet. My car's down in the garage. I said, all my papers rented, and it don't worry me at all tonight about it. I don't need who's no saying there. I'll see them tomorrow when I get in the car. He said, I want to know if you'll take me back. I said, no. I told you. When I was done with you, I'm done with you. So he got on another place, but they had trouble with him, and it was. It's just one of those things that. The guy said, you're mean. I said, yes. I said, if you get mean to me, I said, you know what? I said, I can get about as mean as you want. I said, you know, it don't bother me. And it's, you have to learn the other people.
So, but basically, so you were certified by the states to inspect milk for Hershey?
Yep. New York,
Yeah.
New Jersey, and Pennsylvania. We sold, every place that we sold milk, I had to have a license for. Because when they bought the milk in, they dealt with them to sell them milk. It isn't just quite as selling, just getting a load of milk and selling it to anybody. You can't do that. And you couldn't do that then, you can't do it today. Because the rules and regulations are that it's got a certain thing that you got to follow. It don't matter. You can't, if you want to lose your job, you know, you can lose your job for it.
Now, when you say Hershey, is this the chocolate company?
That was Hershey Chocolate Company. Yeah, they were down in.
So they're buying essentially milk for their milk chocolate.
Oh yeah, they bought it for Hershey when they were down at Hershey.
Mm-hmm.
They're not. They don't take milk in there anymore. They're over in. They're out of the state.
They've moved a lot of their things to Mexico.
Mexico. They're in Mexico now. Oh, they were big in Hershey down there. But they've torn all that old building down and rebuilt it. I was down there here some time ago. Tim Barry, a good friend of mine, said to me, go along down to Hershey. So I said, Tim, I don't want to go along down there. That place has changed. He said, I'll go along down and see it. He said, you'll not recognize it. I said, no. I'll tell you, when I went down there, I went up there and went through all them places 3 stories high, and I said, it was never like this when I was here. He said, Paul, I tried to tell you, it's changed a lot since you've been here. But it's, you know, it's the West. It's the way it goes. But then she said she moved out of here, or they moved out. They don't take no milk in Hershey anymore at all. I don't think they even manufacture anything there anymore. It's all business places in there. And they tore everything out and rebuilt a lot of it.
So were you still based? Did you still live in Newville at this time, or?
My home was in Newville, 89 East Main Street. That was my home.
No, but when you worked for Hershey, you and Mother still lived out right outside of Newville. We lived there on 641.
Well, yeah, I built 3 places in there. I built that stone house there, and then I bought the place down below us, and then built that place back there. The last one I built 3 or 4 houses. Hey, made a little money off all of them, so.
In 70 years, I think they moved 4 times, and this was the longest move from Newville down here. The other ones were across the street, next door, behind. One move, they rolled the piano down the sidewalk from one house to the next house.
But you said you moved to Florida for 16 years?
We went for Florida for.
Or is that just out of the winter?
For 6 months. No, we left here. I left everything right here. We left everything here, and well, we did before we come here. Before we come here, we were going to Florida.
Yeah, but you just went for 6
No,
months.
we just decided that we'd saved up some money, and the missus drove, and her health was good then, and we just decided that we were going to see the biggest part of the country that we could see, because she had been a beautician, and we saved our money, and so every summer we took 4 or 5 months, and we just went. We were all over the United States, and I think we hit every place there was in Canada. When you go up there, and I got books and books and books. I started to take pictures. And I thought, no. So then we started by the postcards with the places on where we were. There were already pictures that you could see, because when I would take pictures, I'd go down in. Well, then I couldn't. Then I missed what was coming down. And we said that one day. I says, you know what? We'd better buy postcards that are taken from a plane with a photograph camera that get all this. And I've got, you know how many books I got in there. They're full of that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I've told the kids, don't throw it away, because you'll never get pictures like that again, because those places are all built up. And they're all marked and dated, the days we got them and everything.
Are there any particular places that still stand out to you?
Well, I see a lot of places in there, but there's one thing that I just got here the other week. I don't know whether you know, you probably maybe not know about. This guy was on, they put out a disc, and I buy a lot of discs, so I have a whole bunch of them. But anyway, they sent a disc out, and it's 140 some minutes, and it shows back in 2000 and what did I tell you, it was 2008, 7, 6, 2006. This guy went through all these old time ruins. I mean, it's back, but where they are, they've all been rebuilt. They were torn down, and they have rebuilt them from photographs and stuff, and they're like they were, the size buildings and everything, and it's took them years. But now nobody lives in them. They're all, they send pictures, and that it's I think it's an hour and 46 or 48 minutes, something like that. And I'll tell you, it's amazing how them old buildings were put together back in the year 2000. And this guy went through and he's photographed all of them. But they're just the way they were from things when they were built. From, I guess they had programs and stuff, but they made them from them. But the way the old time tile was laid and everything. And that's history to me. I mean, you don't, unless you're interested in it, it's just no good.
So it's not, history that they don't teach you, or that they didn't teach you when you were in high school.
Oh, they didn't have it then. They didn't have it then.
Yeah.
And, no, and I've been blessed that my mind's as good as it is, and hey.
Well, let me ask you one more thing before we wrap it up. Did you play any baseball growing up, or?
Oh yeah, I played baseball too. I played baseball, everything.
'Cause I know Newville's known for its baseball.
Yep.
So.
I played baseball. Yes, I used to have the old one glove. I don't know who gave it to anymore. It's one I'd had for, I bought it back in 45, I think it was. And I gave it to somebody. It was still good. It had a nice pocket in it and everything. I don't want to give it. I don't think I gave it to Brad. I gave it to somebody that knew just playing ball. And I said, "Here." I said, "I don't ever use this old glove." And my man, he said, "That's a good old glove." I said, "Yeah, don't throw it away." I said, "That glove cost a lot of money back then." I said, "I think when I bought that, it cost me $5 or $8 or something like that when I bought it." But I said, he said, "Well, it's a good glove." I said, "Yeah, but you could get a good glove at that time for that." And then I quit playing that because after I had my knees and that stuff done, that's not a game to play ball with.
Yeah. So was it the Twilight League or was it just
No, I just played in the leagues around here that we had around, I mostly played the field. I pitched some, but then my arm kind of gave out, and I said, "No, there's no use ruining your arm for just to say you pitched baseball. I mean, that's no good."
But you bowled for years.
Oh, I bowled years.
And you roller skated. He roller skated till he was about 75.
oh wow.
Yeah, I gave them skates to somebody. I don't know who anymore. Somebody wanted them. I said, "We could have them."
Probably put him in a museum. I still have mine. My wooden wheels. And metal skate case.
Yeah, well.
No, was this mainly at Midway or the later years?
Oh, we went in Midway, Hagerstown. We used to go
Roxbury.
to Maryland, Roxbury, up here at Newburgh. And,
But we roller skated a lot in Newville.
oh, yeah. See, there was a couple of roller skating rinks right here. Well, there's one right across the street over here. It was over here. This building right over here, across the street where all them, where you go out there with the, well, right over there, there's 3 or 4 buildings in a row there. One row, that was a roller skate rink at one time. We're all in buildings. I think there's 5 or 6 buildings in there now. It's right across the street over there. They've torn a lot of the buildings down, but that was a roller skating rink at one time, back years ago.
Yeah.
In there. So, and this stuff, this has been here, but the stuff below that that was all vacant down there. I wanted them to buy that piece of ground when I come in here. I said to the guys here, I said, "I'm telling you, buy that piece of ground." The guy said, "You don't know what you're talking about." I said, "Well, I'm telling you, that piece of ground right at the other side of this here, run to the army post. There wasn't a house or a building there." I said, "Buy it." Because I said, one of these days, you'll be able to buy this place over here and tear it down and extend this place clean on down to the army post. I said, "If you want to make it through, you're crazy." I said, "Well, then I'm crazy." And after they went down, then the one guy went down to see about it. He said, "Well, Paul had just sold that off." I said, "I told you they were going to sell it. How did you know?" I said, "I talked to the guy who was wanting to buy it." And I said, I told him, I said, "If you buy that, buy it all." Because I said, "You're never going to get another chance." And he did. He bought it all. Cleaned down to the army post, so now it's all gone. No. Well, I don't know if you'll have to ask me something else. I
Well,
don't know.
that's about all I had. I mean, the only thing I usually end with is there anything I should have asked or that you want to mention? But
Oh, there's a lot of things that I've seen around that's been rebuilt and everything, but to sit and talk about it, it's.
well, actually, I spoke with John Bailey earlier today. He mentioned that when he was growing up, Newville was a lot quieter.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Well, see, there was a lot of people with horses, buggies came in. There was hitching posts all along the main streets.
What's that?
Oh yeah. Then they took them out and put parking meters in.
Well,
I think they just took those out too. So
Yeah.
we'll see what they put in now.
Well, Newville didn't have a red light. I mean, when I was growing up, we didn't have a red light. I think it's still amazing that it doesn't have a McDonald's.
Well,
You know, if you want to go for fast food, you have to
And
go
see,
to
up
Carlisle
there-
or Shippensburg.
where the bank is, there where the banks were, well, when you go up to the red light, going back into Newville, when you go up to the red light on Main Street, and you turn left up there, where that alley is up there. See, that alley burned out in 45, 50, 60.
When did the theater burn?
The theater burned?
Where the old post office was.
Oh yeah, well, see, yeah, that was on the corner there. But see, that was a dry goods store when I was a kid there. That was a dry goods store that ran clean down to where the high school was. That's what was there. And then they tore it down, and then they built something else in there. And and right across there were.
Or Fremont's drugstore. Wasn't your dad's store there along where Fremont's store is?
Yes, we started where you turn the corner where the bank is there now. The corner when you turn like you're going out Big Spring Avenue, that small store in there now. But that's all stuff now. But that's where the store was that we started. We started back in the 40s. And then we moved across the street over there because that was a bigger store. And then you go back there, and there's a place up where, and that's where the stuff's set up there, and that ran on back in that building. And then we were there till he sold that, and I don't know when Dad sold that anymore, but he went out of the business. Well, he was getting old enough to get out of the business too.
Well, but didn't he sell that, and didn't he go to work then for Cloverdale?
He went out to, well, he worked at Cloverdale years ago, and then he went back to work at Cloverdale. He was 70-some years old when he went to work at Cloverdale there a little bit.
No, he quit working when he was 60-something.
Well,
I remember him working at Cloverdale.
well, that was a good while back, but he worked there early, and Tom Tritt and them, Cloverdale went under. And that's when my dad went in the trucking business back in, I believe in the 40s or something, way back. And he told me, he said, Tom Tritt said, Bill, just stay. He said, we're going to make her back. He said, no, sir. You got what money I put in here, and I'm never going to give Cloverdale any more money. And he went in the trucking business. He never did go back to work. Tom Tritt made a lot of money after he went back because then Cloverdale came back and started to grow. And Tom was one of the big holders in Cloverdale and after it kept going. So there's been a lot of changes.
Well, the other thing that I'm always interested in hearing about too is your family more Carlisle centric or Shippensburg centric?
My family.
Yeah. Or did you mainly stay in Newville?
Well, my dad was born in Carlisle.
Okay.
He come from Carlisle.
Yeah.
And I said my mother come from Perry County.
Yep.
But we've always been around Newville there. Now I got brothers in Montana. And we just seen my one brother the other day. He lives over at south side over here.
Centerville.
Yeah. And
Well, did you did you on say Friday night, did you go to Carlisle or?
we used to do that. We used to go down Colorado, yeah.
All right.
But see, that's when the cars parked in this way.
Yeah.
The trains went right straight down the main street. That seems funny to you, but that's where they went.
No, I've seen video of it, so. Yeah.
See, that bridge up there, that's still standing up along the big spring.
Yep.
You've seen that over there. This is the one that's over where you go into the Presbyterian home. And up on top there, that's the old knitting mill up there.
Okay, yeah.
That's where that's from. And this is the back side of that building. This is the one that faces the railroad. See that building there?
Yep.
See that steeple on that building over there? That's the same house or the same thing, but this is facing the other way. This is where the low line went.
Okay.
And then I said they moved that line up to the high, what they call the high line. But that road went in there. That was a place. There's been a lot of changes.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Mr. Spahr, for speaking with me today. I've learned quite a bit. So.
Well, I don't know.
I have, yeah.
Well, you have to ask me sometimes because I've been blessed that the children have been as good to me as they have, and everybody around that comes around. That's why I sat around the house a lot. No, I just don't go out anymore much. They go and do the errands for me, and that I'm thankful they do.